Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jerrel. I am a humanoid organic entity from Earth, and I'm going to take a look at Metroid Prime 4 running on the Switch hardware. This is not the Switch 2 version of the game. This is running on original Switch, and this is requested of me from viewers. If you are looking for positive Metroid content, then please feel free to spend some time here at the channel. I generally don't ask people to like or subscribe, but I've heard from a lot of people that have asked me to keep making positive Metroid content, so I will do that. And if you would like to see more Metroid content, please feel free to subscribe for that. This is Sungrand. I make games for a living. This is my development studio, and this channel here is just a place for us to hang out, have a chill vibe, and we can talk about our hobbies and we can share stuff that we like. So today I'm going to explain from a game developer standpoint and a technical standpoint why the game looks so good and how it is able to run well. What is happening here is that the developers have a very strong understanding of the technical limitations of the hardware upon which they are shipping their game, the hardware for which they have developed and optimized their title. So these developers have specialized knowledge. A game doesn't just need to be, say for example, oh, it's ported from one console to another. It needs to be specialized for the platform upon which it is running. And the Switch hardware requires a significant amount of specialization because it is not very strong, and the things that it should be able to do well, for some reason, it actually does not do well. So we have certain expectations when it comes to games. As gamers, we expect games to look a certain way, to feel a certain way when they are of a particular era. We have different expectations for different eras of gaming. And in this era that we are in, we expect things like volumetric lighting. We expect realistic reflections. We expect high-resolution realistic shadows. And those things all have a performance cost. That does not mean you're spending actual money. It means that your hardware, the platform upon which you run the game, has a limited rendering budget and also a processing budget. And anything that is rendered on the screen, that is drawn on the screen, uses up your rendering budget. Things like simulating a sense of realistic lighting, of conveying a sense of particles and moisture and imperfections in the air, dust and things like that. Generally, modern games with a realistic aesthetic will rely on volumetric lighting, and that has a very high rendering cost, but it looks so nice. So very briefly, I'm going to explain the concept of breaking the line. And breaking the line means that you are disrupting a harsh visual border. And it applies not just in a very basic sense. The most boring thing to look at is a straight line. Let's say we look at the horizon. If the bottom of the screen is just one black bar and then the top of the screen is a white bar, you have a line there that is extremely boring to look at. And so by adding visual elements to the screen, or to the scene, you can disrupt that line, you break the line, and it makes it more interesting. Now, things like volumetric lighting break the line. In the cursor of my arm cannon, you can see I'm pointing to the edge of this tree here. Now this forms a line. It forms a line between the tree itself and the background. And if we did not have this visual effect here, it would look quite boring. But what this bright lens flare type, it's simulating a sense of volumetric lighting. It's simulating light passing through particles in the air, causing these light shafts. Light shafts are breaking the line, and that just makes things look nice. So the next time you are playing your video game, take a look at elements that cause the scene to break the line. And I'm going to point that out in a number of times because this is a concept that the developers understand this. Other people may call this term different things. This is a term that I've coined because it makes sense, it's easy to understand. But these developers absolutely understand the concept of breaking the line. If we have a look at the boundary between this rock wall here and the ground, they have broken the line. How did they break the line? They have tree roots here they have rocks, and the visual line of the rocks are broken up by the moss. Now, these developers have implemented a shader. I believe they're using a shader that allows them to blend the textures of their geometry. So they can place the geometry there, and they can put details on there like the moss. I believe that I've seen it in the dirt. I don't necessarily see it here exactly. Actually, I think they are using that. But it allows them to use basically a PNG, a single file, to blend the textures from the moss to the rock, and then they rely on a shader. And a shader is part of the program that tells the game engine how something is supposed to be rendered, how it looks. They are blending the texture of that object to other geometry that is intersecting with. Not only that, but you can see that they have baked in the shadows here. In general, in gaming, for example, if you have an open world game where all of the game is rendered in one continuous environment and there is a time of day system, then the shadows, the lighting are all calculated in real time, but that has an extremely high rendering cost. And on the Switch hardware, that would have a massively negative impact on the frame rate. What we see here are baked shadows. These are baked in during development time, so the developers are sitting at their big, strong, powerful computers, and they have told the computer, hey, would you mind we'll tell you where the lighting is, can you just render out this scene, and can you bake the shadows in? So basically, what the developers have done is they've taken all of the shadows, they've calculated it ahead of time, they've saved that to a bunch of texture files, and so that way the game engine does not have to render, it does not have to calculate and process these shadows in real time. These shadows were calculated ahead of time, and that saves a huge amount of your rendering budget. So that really contributes to why the game looks so good. The game is split into different areas, so there are loading screens, but they are masked behind in-context, diegetic scenes where the character moves from one scene to another. They are able to unload the assets from one area to another. We only have a limited amount of RAM. Anything that you see here has to be loaded into RAM. And I explain this, it might be a very difficult concept for some people to understand, but a RAM is a little tiny animal that lives inside your hardware. And it has horns, and it's furry, and it has 4 legs. And the little RAM has to run around inside and has to carry all the assets. I was tricked. I believed, when I first saw the trailers for this, I believed this was true volumetric lighting, and I thought, geez, that is impressive. For me personally, volumetric lighting is very expensive on the Switch, and we're looking at, and everyone's calling it the Switch One, but I work with Nintendo. I develop games, and I don't think I'm allowed to call it the Switch One. I have to call hardware by its official title, so I'm going to call it the Switch, no matter how difficult that is. Right, and I have only one of my games on the Switch uses volumetric lighting, and it's very reduced in its resolution. You can reduce the resolution of volumetric lighting that you are rendering, but it causes the end result to look blurrier and softer, and you can have less definition. If this was volumetric lighting, this would not be running at 60 frames a second or whatever it's running at. It wouldn't even be running at 50 or 45 frames a second. To have this level of definition for volumetric lighting, you would not be able to achieve 45 to 50 frames a second if this was volumetric lighting. This is a particle effect, and the developers understand you are not creating the actual thing which you are expressing. You are merely conveying the idea of something. So what they've done, these developers know, okay, this is how volumetric lighting is supposed to look. Volumetric lighting looks really nice because what volumetric lighting does is it breaks the line, as we've discussed here. And what they've done is they've implemented a solution that achieves an extremely similar effect as volumetric lighting, but they've done that using particles. We have a system that can generate particles. It's basically an object that has some instructions. You stick an object in the game, you give it instructions, and you say, hey, I want you to just keep generating these particles. Here's some random variants that the particle can have, but I want it to look this way. And so this, what we're looking at here, is not true volumetric lighting. I believe that this is just a particle system. And there's a couple ways that we can test that. If we get that tree to occlude that, let's see what... Oh, I think it's closer to the camera than we think it is. I'm going to try to walk around the tree here. I'm going to try to occlude that. I want to get in the way of that. Okay, so technically, if this was volumetric lighting, we should see some occluding between the light source and that. If we put objects in between that light source, you should see more light shafts. Like, for example, if I walked under this tree, you would see the light shafts change, but the light shafts here are staying static. They only are sticking to one very defined, I would say, shape and expression, right? We should be seeing, if this was true volumetric lighting, that light should be coming through these vines. And as we move through the vines, you would see the light shafts shifting and changing. So the geometry of the light shafts should be changing, but they are very static and rigid. They don't change. And the fact that I can walk underneath this means that the point of origin for these light shafts is right here. The game object that is generating those particles are right there, but they've implemented it in such a way to where you would not second guess it. So it looks like volumetric lighting. I was fooled in the trailers because they've implemented it in a way that shows that they strongly understand what looks good. They understand how to implement solutions that are performant, that are considerate of the hardware. What also contributes to the game looking good are, you can see, I believe that they are implementing some degree of subsurface scattering, but I need... Here's the thing, that the light source never moves, so it's a little tougher for me to figure out. And then we're sort of restricted to a small path here, but I believe that they are using some degree of subsurface scattering. And subsurface scattering is the simulation of light entering an object, the light bouncing around within the mass of the object, and then the light coming out of the other side. And subsurface scattering is a visual technique. Movies use it as well when they have CGI, and it really makes things look organic. It really sells a sense of organicness, and that things are not just a hard piece of geometry, that light can interact with this object in an interesting way. And it is not about realism. Realism is just reinforcement, but realism itself is not that interesting. Otherwise, if you actually cared about realism, if you loved realism and you were obsessed with it, you would turn off your video game and you would spend all your time outside, because that's the most realistic thing you will ever see, is going outside and spending time outside. But you are not doing that. You're sitting at home playing video games with me, and you're hanging out with me here. And that is because realism is not interesting. It is expressiveness. It is expression. It is visual storytelling that is interesting. So we are going to continue on forward, and I'm going to shrink myself down so that we can enjoy more of the scene here. So let's go ahead and minimize me now. Minimize! Can I get the Ant-Man sound effect, or am I going to get sued for that if I put the Ant-Man sound effect in there? It's kind of funny. If I'm too small, it's like visual... It's visual comedy if I'm too small. If... Hold on. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to put myself here. Samus. Samus, your ammo is low. Samus. Samus, there's an item over there. Samus. Reload. Oh, Samus doesn't reload. Samus, you're low on missiles. It's very funny that I'm too small. That's comedy. Okay. I'll go ahead, I think this is fine. Here we go. Now, here's my problem when it comes to games. I gotta break the crates, man. I got crate obsession, and these are nothing more than glowy, bulbous crates. I'm gonna bust them wide open. So I'm doing my best to present here. I want to keep this video professional and educational and informative, but I can't help it that I do enjoy a video game, and I gotta bust them crates. So I think you may find there will be some points at the video where my gamer side will come out, and I'll probably waste a bunch of time just breaking crates. And I like these glowy, bulbous orb ball plant bulbs. They're nothing more than gooey crates filled with goo. I gotta bust them. And you know, one day you'll bust open a crate and you'll find something inside. You can bust open 1,000 crates, right? And get nothing. But there's a chance that you can get a spinny glowing ball. And I want that, man. I want that spinny glowing ball. And I'm a little bit obsessed. Okay, I will carry on. I'm a professional. I will carry on. There, I think I saw something here. Oh, this is very nice. I do like this. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wow. Okay. So what's going on here is they've masked the water. I believe this water is not geometry. This, in general, it's a lot easier, right? From a macro management standpoint, from a level building standpoint, to use water. You would define a spline, you put points in there, you rely on the game engine itself to smoothen out the geometry as you define the splines, points, and you would say, okay, this can be a mesh. This is a mesh, it's a geometry, this is where water flows. But this is not a mesh. This is part of the texture of this ground geometry, this terrain. And the reason why I believe that is because look at the harsh separation here. You see this harshness here? It's so strongly defined. Ooh, I could be wrong. I need to double check myself here because these developers are doing things that are really, really clever. See the grass here. This is one material. This object is comprised of multiple materials, right? And we use a detail map, and the detail map is basically, you know, a grayscale that tells us this part of the material can be rendered here, it can be drawn. And they are using detail maps to define this water. So this is all one geometry. I'm fairly confident on this. And what they have done is what they are doing is this water is has pixel displacement. So it has a shader with pixel displacement. And it is offsetting the material texture for the normal map. Is there a flow to it? There is some degree of... Ooh, I think we're only going to see this water move in one direction here. Let's see if it curves. So we're following the linearity of this. Oh, man. This is a little bit better than I thought it was. See, it curves here, which means they're doing a little more than just offsetting the texture. Okay, so I'm genuinely impressed now because this is a little more than what I thought it was. There is flow to this water. Okay, I'm okay, okay. I'm impressed right now. That whatever implementation they're doing here is really nice, and this is a very simple solution. What I like about this is that it's manageable. It's easy for them to manage, and I love the effect that they've used detail maps for that water flow so that you can have this. You can see that that material is being rendered above the water because they have relied on their detail maps for that. If they didn't use detail maps, if they used geometry, you would see where the water, generally you'll see where the water has a harsh connection to where it intersects with other geometry, and then you can rely on advanced shaders to smoothly even that out, to sort of blend the pixels. Now we do see some harshness here, but I believe that has to do with there's a limit to what we can do with detail mapping and normal mapping, and when it comes to multiple layers, there can be some degree of artifacting. Oh man, I just want to crouch. I'm obsessing over this because I'm utterly fascinated, and I know the vast majority of people are not going to care about this. This means absolutely nothing to you. But I personally find this so very fascinating, and I want to be certain if my assessment of their implementation is accurate or not. Oh, man. And I could 100% be wrong on my assessment here, and I would have to look at this a little longer. And the reason why I'm not 100% confident on their implementation here is because It's so clever. They are achieving things that generally take a toll on the hardware, right? And they've implemented solutions that are interesting and clever. And these are solutions that you have to have decades, and I'm not exaggerating, you have to have decades of development experience. You have to have worked on multiple platforms. You have to have really struggled and dealt with some, if you'll pardon my French here, you will have to have dealt with some shit to really understand how to do this. And what I love about these scenes is that there's always a sense of life and movement. You see that there are these insects that are flocking together. That's already impressive already. These flocking insects that are moving in an interesting way, like a swarm. They're shifting directions. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Look at these little guys. This ant is carrying, well, it's not an ant. We know that. Goodbye. Can I affect this little? I feel guilt. I feel guilt. I feel guilt, and I'm gonna keep doing it. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me, I'm a gamer, but I have to do this. You understand, don't you, little creatures? You understand. I'm sorry. Forgive me. It's too fun. I can't. Okay. I'm absurdly impressed right now. This is not an exaggeration. There's a technical term that we use in the art world, that we use in the industry. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The lighting shifted just and it got a little darker. There's a technical term that we use, and I'll share it with you. If you've not heard of it, you can feel excused for not having heard it. It's like only professionals use it, only academics use it. That term is sick as hell. And what we're seeing here is sick as hell. There's no reason for them to have done that. They don't need to make these insects. They don't need to make some of them carrying leaves, you know. They're similar to ants. They are not ants. They are evoking a memory, a shared memory we have of culture, because we all know what ants are. They are evoking that. So these developers understand what evocation is. And if you are an artist, if you create in any way, evocation is the most powerful tool in your toolkit. And these developers absolutely know how to do that. Look at the swaying vines. These are baked animations. These are not being processed in real time. These physics simulations, it's conveying a sense of physics simulation. It's saying that these things are billowing in the wind. They are baked animations. If all of these were physics animated, if they were simulating physics, then it would have a huge toll. It would take a huge toll on the frame rate. So those are baked. The swarming of the insects, it's so interesting to look at, and I want to hit one, right? I can hit one, surely. I'm not bad at video game. I can hit. I really enjoy shooting in real life. I enjoy firearms. I enjoy archery. I don't know if I could hit like a moving dragonfly in real life. I'm fairly confident about my shooting in real life, but I couldn't hit a dragonfly in real life, or whatever these things are. So here's the thing. I see a pattern here. These insects are being generated. If I wait long enough, they should spawn into that spot right here. Okay. So now, okay, there is a pattern. They're given instructions to spawn and fly down this path. So we are seeing a pattern here. So it's not random or arbitrary. There are scripted instructions. I'm certain I'm giving that enough lead. I know how to hit a moving target. These are not interactable. That's okay, because the ant things were interactable. I really appreciate the alien plant life. You know, I have a book, you know, that someone gave me for Avatar, not The Last Airbender, Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, and it's so cool looking at all the imaginary stuff that's in there, you know. Now you're going to see a little bit of blurriness on the ground, so have a look at the distance here. We rely on a technique called anisotropic filtering. And what happens is this terrain is at oblique angles. Oblique means like if my... Okay. Let's get this here. If we have this billfold with a dollar bill, a few dollar bills, and it's facing you, it's not oblique at all. It's facing the camera, the viewing camera. If I turn it flat like that, it becomes oblique. This is now an oblique angle, and it's harder to see the details on there. Now in video games, we need to use anisotropic filtering. Otherwise, that's going to look really messy. It's going to look sloppy. The details are not going to be filtered well. So anisotropic filtering will smoothen that out, and it will make it look better. But there's something else going on here as well. We have different levels of detail for the normal map. and the normal map, or not just the normal map, but the textures in general. So as we get farther from geometry, the farther we get from it, we can use a lower level of detail for the textures. It's extremely noticeable when it comes to the normal map, and the normal map defines the bumpiness, how bumpy something looks. And as we get farther from the distance, even though the terrain, it's still, one object, when it's at oblique angles, when we see it change to a lower resolution, a lower level of detail for the textures, you see a harsh line. And that harsh line can be really visible. So we use anisotropic filtering to smoothen out and soften the details, and hopefully it smoothens out the transition between lower resolution. Now we can see the lower resolution on the terrain itself. We can even see just here, you can see it as it transitions to a lower resolution of the materials. You see that artifacting there, just where my cursor is pointing? You'll see that there. And then as we get closer to it, you will see the higher resolution. Now, the reason why we do that, to have lower resolution on the textures, the farther away that an object is because it makes it easier on the rendering. It is an easier rendering budget. If we look straight down where we cannot see our legs, we see the highest resolution of our textures. That has a performance cost. And if we were using the highest resolution textures on everything all the time, even at distance, that would cause the frame rate to drop. So what is going on here is they're using lower resolutions, and this is something we've been doing for decades, right? But you can see that that distance actually starts pretty close, and that is one of the things that contribute to this game running so well. And it's going to be choppy a bit here because my capture card is not fantastic, right? It's not an Elgato, it's more like an El Timo, if you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's all we have to discuss today. We're getting close to the half-hour mark here, so I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you're enjoying the game. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Can I shoot these? No, of course not. This is baked lighting as well, but it makes it look so interesting and lived in. And we know that this is baked lighting. This is not a real light source. And if it was a real light source, it means that it would have to process lighting. It would have to process shadow in real time. And that has a huge, huge performance cost. The way that you can tell that this is not a real light source is because we do not see the light bulbs affecting the arm cannon. So this is good. And the reason why this is good is because the artists here have achieved the effect that they intended. They have communicated and expressed the idea that they are intending to express, and they've done it in a way to where this does not have a negative performance cost on the hardware. It looks fantastic, it looks great, and it sets the abstract normality to where we don't expect to see that light source reflected in the arm cannon, because this world has a consistent abstract normality. So we will not expect that light source to show up on there, but there is some degree of environmental, there's a cube, I think they're using just like a single cube map for processing reflections. Oh, but look at that. So there is some degree of, this is so fantastic. This looks so great. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. Oh, sorry, I confused myself. I'm getting a little lost here because I'm looking at cool stuff. Okay. Shoot them balls, shoot them spiky balls. Okay, take care of yourselves, be well. If you would like to check out my other Metroid episode, I'll put a link to that here and on the description. And I'm also doing other stuff, but you guys are here for Metroid. So take care of yourselves, be well. Please let me know if you would like to see more Metroid episodes. Be well.